Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Natomas Charter School Board of Directors meeting for April 3rd, 2023. Calling us to order at 5:30 p.m. Roll call, Doug Gaffney.
Here, present.
Nita Kushal.
Here.
Sean King.
Present.
Gina Lee.
Here.
Dr. Maria Mejorado.
Here.
Pretty Merchant.
Here.
Jennifer Morgan.
She will be absent today.
Ashante Norton here.
Our students will be joining us after closed session today.
Thank you. Moving on to hearing of the public for items on the closed session agenda.
Nothing received with me.
All right, we'll adjourn to closed session to consider and/or take action upon any of the following. One, public employee performance evaluation pursuant to Government Code Section 54954.2. Administrative Representative Dr. Joe Wood, Executive Director, Evaluation and Employment. And secondly, conference with legal counsel, anticipated litigation with Administrative Representative Dr. Joe Wood, significant exposure to litigation pursuant to paragraph 2 or 3 of subdivision D of section 54956.9, one case. Adjourning to closed session at 5:31 p.m. Thank you.
Very good.
Very good. All right, thank you. Welcome back. We are reconvening from closed session at 6:35. No action taken on either item. Moving on to section F, student information update. Let's start with Early College Academy, Diego.
So it's a short one this time, but from March 20th to 24th, we had our multicultural week. There was a multicultural rally with performances by PFA students and games as well. And then ECA had a multicultural potluck, so people can bring in foods of their culture and then just share it with others. Everyone could try it. That was fun. So there was a Sac City field trip to those who were invited, and along with that one, there was a WACA College Fair field trip on April 4th. A lot of juniors were encouraged to attend, and like 120 to 150 colleges were going to be represented there. And then finally, we have spring break coming up. I think all of us know already. Starts on April 6th, and students come back on April 17th.
All right, let's move on to, thank you so much, Diego. Leading Edge, Hanvi.
So this one is also short. I feel like March went by really quickly because I personally was counting days till like spring break. I personally was. So March went by pretty quickly, and we had STEM night on March 23rd. It was an amazing evening full of fun STEM activities. The Leading Edge STEM program is really fun, and we have like a lot of activity-based learning that always goes on. And we also had our 7th grade science making s'mores. So we ran out of s'mores like really quickly. We also had our campus culture survey. A lot of teachers on our campus are finding a lot of like rude language, and to get that into control and have like the students like recognize like their their actions, we had like a little survey about like racial slurs and stuff. And our ASB, and then we also have Green Team, which is like this little thing that ASB is putting together, because we noticed that our Black Rock campus is like really getting full of like litter and stuff. And we want to help our custodians. So Leading Edge ASB is putting together a Green Team that meets every like 4 sessions per learning lab, and we like pick up trash around Black Rock. We had ASB host a movie night. We had popcorn, snacks, and cotton candy. It was really fun watching Princess and the Frog. ASB made a lot of money, so we look forward to selling more and raising more money for more events. Our junior varsity soccer team season ended, and our 6th graders played really well. And then we had our 7th and 8th grade boys and girls tryouts and their first games. They are going pretty well. It's the time of year when we're entering the last trimester. Things get kind of crazy. And we had a little ceremony in the Benvenuti for awarding students who demonstrated growth in one of the pillars. So great job to them. And our students are really ready to end this school year with a blast. Any questions?
Thank you so much. And how about Key for PFAA?
Okay, good evening, board. So this is our PFAA board items for tonight. So to start off, in some charter schools, PFAA spring production of Something Rotten, a musical that combines singing, dancing, and comedy, opened on March 17th in the Benvenuti, with the show closing on March 25th. So big congratulations to the cast and crew and teachers and parents for a very successful run. The cast did a really amazing job. I was working backstage and it was a really, really tiring 2 weeks of teching, but the show was really amazing. So big congratulations to all of those people who contributed to that. We also had Multicultural Month throughout the entire month of March, and we had events such as Taste of the World on March 8th, which was a chance for students to taste foods from all cultures, our clubs, language departments, and individual students. We had Hip Hop Goes Global on March 15th. This was a lunchtime celebration of hip hop culture featuring student choreographed pieces. And the Multicultural Rally and Assembly happened on March 20th and 21st. Middle school and high school, just interchanging on either day. So this was a celebration of the school's diverse student body with performances from students, teachers, and the cast of Something Rotten as well. We also had a guest speaker and for both middle and high school discussing the celebration of multiculturalism and finding truth within yourself and your story. That is the little spiel he gave me, so I put that there. Also, what happened this month, the students who were selected for the One Voice Yellowstone project were released. So congratulations to these specific students, Molly Nealon and Lance Bell, who are the directors. We also have their ambassadors, Aiden Spava, Lauren Schilling, Stella Huntingdale, Kai Hitzman, Gianna Quisto, Irie Garrett, Samantha Law, April Zanato, and Sarah Ochoa Rodriguez. So that project will be taking off in the upcoming school year. Also, another congratulations to our vocal ensemble groups for ranking superior at the Santa Cruz Vocal Jazz Festival. A little break from congratulations, I guess. We had cast testing.
That's very congratulating. It's a way to showcase your learning.
We had cast testing from March 27th and the 28th. And us juniors had the science test on March 30th, which I actually fairly enjoyed. So we also had the middle school review of Born for Broadway, which opened on March 31st in the Black Box Theater with the matinee and closing show on April 1st. So another congratulations to the cast and crew for an amazing show. Some other things that happened that I didn't write down over here. There was also a middle school social, which was their last social of the year that ASB threw. It just happened at the amphitheater. So just a fun little get together that ASB threw. And I don't know if you can really tell, but my hands are purple. So today we had field day for PFA. So we had events like color wars. We had an obstacle course, and we also had capture the flag. And the juniors won. So a really fun way to end off this report. So that's all I have. Any questions?
Thank you so much. And do we have a report from Lillian?
We do have a report from Lillian. She was not feeling well, so she will not be in attendance. I'm happy to read the report if you'd like.
That'd be great, thank you.
Since the last board meeting, many things have happened, says Lillian. On March 15th, bees came to visit from Fairy Tale Town. On March 16th was Family Literacy Night. There were storytellers, stations with word games, crafts, and more. On March 22nd, Something Rotten student rush occurred. March 24th was a trout release field trip. Cast testing also occurred at PAC for grades 3 through 8. On March 29th, they had parent coffee talk. March 31st, PAC fitness field day also occurred. Dr. Wood can speak to some of that. And tomorrow, I'm thinking, is the trip to Coloma. And after that is spring break.
Well, thank you, Lillian, and hope you're feeling better. All right, moving on to hearing of the public for items not on the agenda.
We do have somebody online. I'm not sure if they're wanting to comment. Members of the public that are visiting on Zoom, is there anybody that would like to speak for items not on the agenda? Going once, going twice. I hear none.
Okay, how about hearing of the public for items on the agenda?
Members of the public online, if anybody has anything to speak to regarding items on the agenda, please let us know. Going once, going twice. Hearing none.
Thank you. Moving on to approval of the agenda.
So in tonight's approval of the agenda, under consent items, we have the revised employee handbook. A few of our staff members gave us some feedback around the language that we have in there regarding students being supervised by their parents when they're on campus, students who are also the children of employees. So we'd like to actually pull the handbook so we can sort of revisit that language and make sure it accurately reflects what the community needs. And then we'll bring the handbook back at a later date. So we would just like to make that one little adjustment to consent items.
Alright. With that adjustment in mind, can we have a motion for consent items?
Actually, we need a motion to approve the agenda first.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
Motion to approve the agenda?
Motion to approve the agenda with pulling the employee handbook
Handbook.
from consent.
Yes.
I'll motion.
I'll second.
Thank you. Okay, roll call. Let's do Doug Gaffney,
Yes.
Anita Kushal,
Yes.
Sean King,
Yes.
Gina Lee, Dr. Maria Mejorado,
Yes.
Richie Merchant,
Yes.
and Ashante Norton, yes. All right, excellent. All right, our consent items. Can I get a motion to approve consent items, please?
So moved.
Thank you.
Was that Preeti for the second?
Yes.
Yes.
Doug Gaffney,
Yes.
Anita Kushal,
Yes.
Sean King,
Yes.
Gina Lee,
Yes.
Dr. Maria Mejorado,
Yes.
Pretty Merchant, and Ashante Norton, I'm a yes. Okay, action items. Let's see, number one, approval of the 2023-2024 salary schedule.
So before you this evening, we have all of our salary schedules. And as it says in the cover sheet in your board packet, what we're proposing tonight is 3% across the board increases for everyone on the salary schedule. So if the board approves it tonight, employees would get whatever step and column adjustment that they would normally get, which is usually anywhere between 2 and 5%, and 3% on top of that. So for some employees, it could be upwards of 7 or 8% increase when compared to this year. As part of approving raises, though, we always look at our compensation study in April. So before you tonight, at least in physical form, you have this very large spreadsheet, which, you know, having been the former data and assessment guy, you know, I get really excited when we have a spreadsheet on tabloid printed paper. So I'm gonna just kind of walk the board through what's in front of you tonight, so you get sort of a sense of what we're looking at here. So, you know, as a public school, K-12 public school located in California, a good 80 to 85% of our budget is really spent on employee compensation and benefits. So as a result of that, before we even jump into really looking at employee compensation, what I wanted to talk to the board a little bit was revenues. So how do we rank when compared to other schools in the region in terms of revenues? For those of you that are new to this experience, if you look at this very first sheet, the cover sheet, where it says LEA overview, you can see a series of school districts and charter schools that we're comparing ourselves to. So we have Benicia Unified down to Woodland Unified, those are the school districts. And then we have the California Montessori Project down to Westlake Charter School as some of the charter schools that we're ranking ourselves against. The reason we've chosen these organizations is this is who historically either we have picked up employees from, or maybe we've lost employees to. There are also organizations that are, you know, differing in sizes and demographics, but reflective of our diverse community that we live in. And so if you look at this first particular sheet and you look at the column all the way to the right, you're going to see the per student funding that each of these organizations receive in terms of their local control funding, formula funding, which is the biggest bulk of funding for K-12 school districts and charter schools in our area. As you're looking at that data, I hope that you notice it's really variable. You know, some districts or charter schools are getting up to $12,000 per student, while others are maybe getting in the, you know, low 8,000s. And that variability really ties back to the student demographics that they're serving. So there's different, if you remember from Anita's budget presentations, there's different dollar amounts of its TK students versus elementary students versus high school students. There's also different supplemental and concentration grant funding based on the percentage of students who meet the unduplicated count definition. So those are students who qualify for free and reduced lunch, maybe are emergent bilingual or English learners, or foster youth. And so if you go all the way down to the bottom and you look at the yellow zone, so it depends. If you're a C person like me and you love data, like you might look at every row of data here, but if you're more of a D person, like just get down to brass tacks, you want to look for the yellow boxes as we're going through this sheet. So when you're looking at the yellow boxes, you can see that when compared to all the organizations, so both school districts and charter schools, the Natomas Charter School actually receives about 10% less funding than the group of schools or the group of organizations that we're looking at here. And that really goes to that unduplicated count percentage. So the average looking at our group here is around 44-45% of the students being unduplicated, whereas at least when we pulled this data, we were at 28.6. So that really drives our funding. It's one of the reasons why we did add an unduplicated count preference in the lottery this year. And so, we're kind of going through the whole lottery process right now, but we'll see in the fall kind of if that is adjusting our numbers at all. When compared to charter schools alone, we're about 1 to 2% below average. So that is important, for the board to know and for any community members watching, because the amount of funds that we have on the table is really what drives our ability to offer compensation and look at what positions that we're having. So that's just the LEA overview. Any questions I can answer about this page before I go on to the next page? Okay, so as we go on to the next page is really looking at what we're referring to as our certificated general education staff. So primarily this is teachers and administrators. The green columns that are all the way to the left, that's just sort of a summarized version of what you were looking at on the front page. And so if we look at teacher salary, for instance, we have beginning, middle, and end. So that's literally, if you think of like a 20-year salary schedule, that's looking at year 1, year 20, and then usually somewhere around year 10 in the middle. And so if you look at salary teaching, you go all the way to the bottom, you can see that when compared to school districts and charter schools, everyone mixed together, we're basically right on average. We're a little below average at mid and end. When compared to charter schools, though, we're actually 2 to 3% ahead, especially at the beginning, and about 5% ahead at the end. Now, I will add that as we're looking at these numbers, they all kind of have an asterisk next to it, because really every organization is going through the same thing that we're going through right now. They're all looking at their budgets, they're all looking at the governor's January proposal and listening to what rumors they're hearing about, changes that are coming, and are approving raises. So it's possible that, this is where we're at today, but these numbers can adjust a little bit. Where we have more significant differences is when we look at administration. Also realize that the administration, when you're looking at charter schools and school districts, is a very apples and oranges type comparison. A lot of these school districts, if you think about our school, if you think about the Black Rock campus, for instance, right? We have 1,100 students on this campus. An 1,100 student high school is actually considered a pretty small high school, right? And an 1,100 student high school might have 3 administrators on it, might have a principal and 2 vice principals. Whereas on this particular campus, we actually have 4 administrators, plus we also have some district office functions that we have to provide as well as a charter school. And so when we're looking at this administrator salary, though, what we're really focusing in on is principals. So how do the principals compare to industry averages? And once again, if you go down to that yellow zone, you can see that principals, we are a little lower on principals. Typically, our principals in our particular organization, there might be a lower student to principal ratio than there might be in a larger organization like a district high school, but there's a difference there. And when compared to charter schools, we're a little bit lower as well. So this is, I think, an area that we need to continue looking at as in a second, I'll get to why we got to the 3% across the board number. But if there are other revenues that are coming in, we might think a little bit about how we can direct that towards administration, since our salaries are not as competitive there. Page 3, similar to what we just looked at, but now we're looking at our certificated inclusive or special education staff. And we are really looking at 3 categories as you look across the top here. So we have our blue zone as our education specialists, purple zone is speech language pathologists, and the pink zone are our school psychologists. And so if you go down to those yellow cells down at the bottom, you can see that for that education specialist, we actually start off pretty nicely, a good 8 to 10% above average. When compared to districts, that sort of levels out, but when compared to charter schools, we actually do quite well. And so we're offering very strong compensation for our ed specialists. Speech language pathologists, it's a little bit, I'm gonna call it closer to average. We're a little lower on the front end, but then kind of average out. And then school psychologist has a pattern that's actually very similar to our education specialist. So I think from a special education standpoint, we're doing okay, but kind of looking at across the board raises for everyone will definitely allow us to remain competitive, especially in this particular area, because this is an area where we have statewide and national shortages for people that are appropriately credentialed. So then if we go to page 4, this is actually a new page. We've been trying to start looking at our hourly or classified staff and starting to kind of see how we rank. We have 20 different hourly positions, so we didn't want to create a spreadsheet that was a mile long. But we really kind of this year honed in on paraprofessionals, campus monitors, and administrative assistants. And if you look down towards the bottom, in paraprofessionals, we're actually doing pretty well. And that's because we've been, adding money as we've gone over the years, trying to really stay ahead of minimum wage increases and retain highly qualified people. If you look at campus monitors, where I'm going to call it about average at the beginning, and then we're a little above average at the end. And then administrative assistant, same sort of structure. We're a little bit, right at average at the beginning, and then a little bit better. So I think we've done pretty well in the hourly section, and just we want to continue maintaining that so that we can continue to attract people. The next page that we're looking at is health and welfare benefits. This is a little hard to do the comparisons because every organization does something different, which you can kind of see in that yellow section. So you'll notice like Benicia Unified, for instance, they have a bunch of gray cells and then a composite. That means they don't disaggregate like we do, where they provide different dollar amounts based on employee only or employee plus one. They just provide a flat dollar amount. So some of the organizations you're going to see are structured like us with 3, and some of the organizations are structured just with 1. But if you scroll down to the bottom, what you can see is if you look at employee only, whether we're talking about all of the organizations here or just charter schools, we actually tend to offer significantly more than the average for employee only. And that's because we've always had the commitment that, for at least for the employee, we were going to have at least 1 or 2 plans that there would be enough funds that would fully cover the employee. So their medical, dental, and vision would be completely covered. Where we're not as competitive is in the employee plus 1 and family. And so what Anita and I are proposing, right now, employee plus 1, if you look at our dollar amounts there, is $975, and families $1,050. What we're proposing is that employee plus 1 would go up to $1,000. So be a little bit closer to that average, which is $972, at least for all the organizations. And then family would go up to $1,250. And so we'd have us a little bit above average for family. And so there's not like a formal salary schedule that you're approving that has that on, but when you guys approve the employee handbook, it'll be folded into the employee handbook. So then also at this time, every year we have to talk about executive director or superintendent compensation. There's a legal requirement to talk about there's a legal requirement to talk about executive director and CDO. So this is the executive director or superintendent compensation. Similar to other administrators, it's a little bit of an apples to oranges comparison. You have a superintendent of a district with 60,000 students, and then you have a superintendent of a charter school with 1,000 students. So it's kind of all over the map. But you can see, there's a high degree of variability. We are below average, but given the size of our organization and the demographics that we serve, I think we offer fair compensation. And then similar on the last page, looking at chief business officer, it's a similar structure to the other administrators in our organization, including the executive director. So any questions I can answer about the compensation study, and then we'll talk a little bit about how we got to 3%. Me, I'm always excited when there's a spreadsheet.
Yes.
This is brings me some joy. I get to sit there and make sure the averages work. So in terms of how we ended up with 3%, so I'm just gonna, I think it's important for us as a board in a governance body, and also for anyone watching at home to remember that our first priority in our strategic plan is around human resources, right? And it's around how do we attract and retain highly qualified employees. So when Anita and I went to the May revision workshop, or not the May revision, the January budget proposal workshop, what is being sort of batted around is an 8% COLA. COLA is largely driven by economic factors around inflation. So you can, in a general sense, the inflation sets the COLA rate, but it also has to be funded. So there has to be revenues that are coming in to actually fund that 8% COLA. The state is already reporting that the revenues are not coming in anywhere nearly as strong as what the governor was reporting. So, you know, Anita and I, we're trying to read a crystal ball. I feel like we're shaking the magic 8 ball and seeing what number sort of pops up right now. But it does seem like, you know, most people are kind of saying 5, maybe 6%. You know, there could be some strings attached to it in the sense of like, you know, like, I don't want to say like formal deferrals, but maybe, you know, you have to use this one money in this certain sort of way. So when we started looking at, you know, our projections for next year, both in terms of, you know, where we are at in terms of actual payroll costs and positions that we're looking at adding. You know, we've talked about adding a director of inclusive education. We recognize that we need a few more behavioral assistants than we've had in the past. And there's some different resources that we're looking at adding into next year. We felt that 3% was probably the place that was, for right now, the happy medium. It would allow us to budget conservatively since we're not 100% sure what exactly the COLA is going to be, but also, you know, give us some wiggle room for different positions that we need to add, or if we find there's other expenditures that we need to address during the summer, that we have that as well. It also lets us set aside some money for another goal that's a little further down our priority list around facilities. So, you know, we are, at last month's meeting, you guys made some commitments to some very important facilities investments, which we have the money to do. But another important facilities investment that we have coming ahead is that N-Wing project of, you know, replacing the N-Wing with a new classroom building. And we will probably have a loan related to that, and that loan will have an annual payment in the neighborhood of $250,000 to $350,000. And so as we're looking at, you know, the COLA that's coming in, the additional revenues that are coming in, being really thoughtful and intentional about holding some of that money aside so that we're able to make those commitments to facilities down the road. So, you know, like I mentioned, tonight, what you have before you in terms of salary schedules is it would basically be a 3% raise for everyone on top of step and column adjustments that are already, you know, planned into the budget. So for most people, that's kind of in the neighborhood of a 5 to 7, maybe even an 8% year over year raise, which is important because as we're all experiencing, inflation is very, very costly, and we want to make sure that we're supporting our employees and also that we're retaining our employees. Also tonight, you have before you our, and we call it our instructional stipend addendum. So for some of our high demand positions, they receive the base salary plus an additional stipend on top of it. So if you think like a math teacher, for instance, or a science teacher, there's a base salary plus the math and science addendum on top of it, just because there's shortages of those credentials. And so we actually have those hadn't been looked at in a number of years. Honestly, the entire time I've been executive director, all the dollar amounts have stayed the same. So at least 5 years or 4 years, they've been that way. So what we did is we basically did around for most of them about a $250 to $500 increase on what was already there as sort of a little addition to the instructional stipends as well. So any questions that Anita or I could answer about raises?
So the question about the instructional stipend addendum, so that's above and beyond their salary,
Correct.
and that is, it's annual, okay. And
Yeah,
it's divided
that's annual.
monthly, it's annual amount, but divided each month by payroll, okay, that's what I'm wondering about, okay.
And just to give you all some history, so we also want as much compensation for our employees to be creditable to CalSTRS if we can. And so that is one way by developing this stipend addendum that we meet that criteria to go towards our annual compensation. Okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, so if you look at, it's page 100 of your
Yeah.
board packet,
Yeah.
you'll see at the very top says like middle school math intern. So someone who is we hire as a math teacher, but they're currently working on their credential, like they're in the intern program, they would get the base salary plus that annual amount, which was $2,000, is now being moved up to $2,250. And to, what Anita's explaining is that as long as it's on this sheet, then it can count towards their retirement. If we were, the way CalSTRS and CalPERS work is if, let's say, we decided, okay, we're gonna give every math teacher an extra $500, but we don't put it on this particular document, then it's not creditable towards their retirement.
I noticed well, I see one pretty high one, the stagecraft and tech director, at 12,500.
And then you also probably the athletic director.
Yeah,
And so
that was
those
the
are
other one,
really reflective of the amount of hours and days that they have to work outside of their, 188 days if they're a full-time teacher. So in the case of our stagecraft and technical director, they're here many, many weekends, many, many evenings, putting on all the shows and productions. So that's really a reflection of that additional work that they're doing.
Just as you know, that in the beginning of this year, we brought this schedule to the board, and those two have been increased at this time. So this revision for next year, those amounts are staying the same because they were recently increased.
Any other questions?
All right, no other questions? If I can get a motion to approve the 2023-2024 salary schedule. And second? Second. Great. All right, roll call vote, Doug Gaffney,
Yes.
Nita Kushal. Yes. Sean King,
Yes.
Gina Lee. Yes. Dr. Maria Menarado,
Yes.
Pretty Merchant,
Yes.
and Shanti Norton, I'm a yes. All right, discussion items, enrollment update, Dr. Joe Wood.
So as you saw in my lovely spreadsheet, enrollment really drives funding. And so we track enrollment every month. So what you have before you is the enrollment report for this year. We are at the point of the year where we stop enrolling students when we have vacancies, just because we're so late in the grading period, it doesn't really make sense to bring students in. But as you look through the enrollment report, you'll see that Leading Edge is at their budget goal of 266. PACT is actually a few students above at 147. PFA is a little below at 743. Basically, we had a group of students that let us know they were moving out of the area and the families were choosing to relocate around spring break. So that's kind of those changes that are there. STAR had one student move in kindergarten and they're in the process of filling that seat. And then ECA is actually 4 over budgeted at the moment. So these are this year's numbers. In terms of next year's numbers, as I shared with the board, we received about a total, I think at this point we're basically about 1,800 applications that we've received for the coming school year for about 300 to 400 spots. So phase 1 of that process is offering open spots. Phase 2 has been the intent to return process, which for those of you that are parents, you probably filled out an intent to return form. And when I looked at the data on Friday, we only had 30 students school-wide who told us they were not coming back. And that's not counting, there's certain grade levels that don't do the intent to return process. For instance, Leading Edge 8th graders don't intend to return because Leading Edge ends at 8th grade. Star Academy 5th graders don't do intent to return, and seniors don't do intent to return, but all the other grade levels do. And so it's about 1,500-ish students that had to do intent to returns. And so out of them, we had 30 who said they weren't returning.
Did they say what, John?
All sorts of different reasons. The majority of the reasons though were moving out of the area, so general relocation. And then there are a couple PFA 8th graders that are not returning because they want to move to a high school program where there's a sports option. And so I think there were like 3 or 4 students who were choosing to do that. This is also that time of year too, though, when we're waiting on intercom announcements and announcements from some other schools. So there could be some other changes as well. But ultimately in the end, we want every child to find the school that's going to work best for them. And if someone feels that they want to try a new thing for high school, that's okay. You know, and there's no negative feelings or anything about that. You know, we support every kid regardless of where they're gonna go to school.
All right. And leading edge update.
Good evening, everyone. Yeah. Hey, I'm Boss Lockteff, Leading Edge Principal in year number 2 of my service here at the school. So, and my second time here presenting. So it's good to see everyone. I did want to say hi to a 5-year-old and a 2-year-old that think I'm on TV right now. So, hi, Luke and Lainey. Daddy's on TV. So at Leading Edge this year, we're on a mission. That is our theme this year, and it really relates to the work that we've been doing this year, which is our Academy Foundation. We renewed our vision, our mission, and our pillars this year. The oldest academy here, we've had the same vision and mission, and the staff thought now's a good time post-COVID to really review who are we, what do we believe, and how are we going to move forward with that common vision, mission, and pillars. And we completed that earlier this fall. Of course, continuing to work on our multi-tiered system of support while building capacity in math, science, and our humanities curriculum. And I'll talk about all of those things after sharing our new vision. So our vision is all about students first. Leading Edge students are empowered to immerse themselves in their community as self-assured and versatile citizens. And our new mission, which pays homage to the past while looking towards the future, built on decades of rich culture and tradition, Leading Edge crafts relevant interdisciplinary learning experiences, fosters positive relationships through collaboration, and provides safe spaces for all students to grow. And we adopted those in November along with our new pillars. I'm not going to go through each one of these pillars individually. I'm going to go through them as we do normally as a staff, which is by celebration, because we celebrate at the beginning of every PD, every staff meeting, every collaboration. We celebrate a lot at Leading Edge. So my first celebration tonight is our students at celebrating diversity, equity, and inclusion through things like Black History Month, of course, our projects like Big Day of Reading, or active global citizenship, getting students out in the community, looking at societal issues. Here you have our students out at the SBCA, and they each sponsored a dog in this project, and then went over to the SBA to visit their dog and read them books, which is pretty cool. So it's active global citizenship is all about being aware of global issues and also taking action within your community in big, in small ways. Joyful learning, one of our new pillars, really, this was named after Marsha Mindel, a legendary knight. You can see the kids, at Halloween, or our cheer team that they started a cheer team on their own this year. That was pretty cool. Also, critical media literacy. Our students engage in projects like C-SPAN or Poetry Out Loud competitions. Innovative thinking can be seen all throughout Leading Edge in our project-based curriculum. Here's a couple pictures from STEM nights. Students hosting various booths about everything from geology to chemical reactions going on there. And of course, collaboration highlighted in our web program, and a special picture of my BlackRock colleagues. We've really made a commitment as an admin staff to work collaboratively with our PFAA and ECA teams this year and demonstrate that for our staffs and for our students. And finally, we celebrate all these pillars 3 times a year at our Pillar Award ceremony. And so there you can see some students being celebrated a couple weeks ago in the Ben. So who's making it happen? Well, 262 students, 10 teachers, 1 ed specialist, 3 paraprofessionals, 1 administrator, and of course our BlackRock staff, counselors, librarians, campus monitors, and more. So I did want to review some data tonight. And I'll start with this first chart. and really kind of break this one down a little bit more slowly because all the subsequent charts are pretty much the same format. So over across the top, you can see trimester 1, 2, and 3. That's our iReady data. So 3 times a year, we're doing this iReady diagnostic to track student progress. And it really just gives us a tool to measure, hey, where are students at? Where are the gaps? And how do we need to move forward? Over here on the left, these bars represent our students that are on or above grade level. So you can see back in August, in trimester 1, 48% of our students demonstrated that they were on or above grade level in reading. And then trimester 2 up to 58%, that was around December. And a few weeks ago, starting trimester 3, we had 70% of our students demonstrate that they're proficient in reading, with still a few months left to go in the year. So we're really happy with that, and it's a testament to our staff in our humanities program and the curriculum they're developing. And you can see on the converse side over here, 2 or more grade levels below. It's good when those numbers go down, right? You start with 30% and move that down to 14 in reading. And then if we flip to math, we'll go a little faster now through math. You can see we started at 31%. We really started with 30 in each category, right? 30 on or above grade level, 30 at 1 grade level below, and 30 at 2 or more grade levels below. And in this third trimester, we have 54% of our students on or above grade level in math, which is better than what we scored at the end of the year last year on our CAST tests. So we're really hopeful that we're going to push over 50, close to 60% of our students proficient in math, which would be a huge number, to be honest with you, especially after COVID and given the deficits that we're seeing in math across the state. So we're super happy about that. And just to note before we move on is we've implemented a new CPM curriculum. We have a Math TOSA. We're seeing intervention programs after school. One of our instructors, Mr. Guzman, has started a peer tutoring program. And we have, there's, I think, 25 or 30 kids getting one-on-one tutoring from peers in there 4 days a week. So pretty cool stuff. And onto some focus populations. I'm only going to focus on English learners tonight, but just, to note, we are focused on, our students that are served by inclusive education, students from low socioeconomic backgrounds. But for our students that are identified as English language learners, let me show you some data for them on the next slide. So you can see at the beginning of the year, only 10% of them were demonstrating proficiency in reading, and that we pushed that number up to 27% that are on or above grade level. And in math, which is on that next slide there, you can see that about 10% of them started off proficient in math, and that number's gone up to about 41%. And I'm going to talk a little bit in the next couple slides about what we're doing to continuing to serve all of our students and those populations that have been historically underserved in schools. So these numbers to me are really positive, and they're showing a lot of growth, and they're really demonstrating that our teachers are doing an excellent job, and they're growing professionally. They're taking the resources that we're providing them and they're using them very well. And in particular, if we go to the next slide, our reading program. So we're going into next year, we're going to be integrating our reading intervention into our Bridge program. So Bridge program has historically served students that are in inclusive education. We're going to also use that to do some reading intervention and have students that are specifically have deficits in like phonics or fluency being served in that program. And that's that Tier 3 reading intervention program. And then in our core classes, our teachers are committed to doing more designated academic language development. That means we're a project-based learning school. So we do a lot of these thematic, fun, engaging projects. However, it's really important that we make sure that we're still doing skills instruction to serve all populations, and especially students that have learning opportunities. And so we'll be committed to that next year. And our math program already has 3 models of intervention: peer tutoring, targeted small groups, and then station rotations within the class going on while continuing to develop our CPM program. And finally, this is what we're going to be focused on next year. So I did want to announce after a couple of years of talking about it, we did officially hire a Spanish teacher last week. Her name's Jessica Ray, and she's absolutely a top-notch instructor and is going to build a wonderful program, a Spanish program. We are going to say goodbye to our technology course after 30 years, but all of that curriculum is being embedded into our core classes, and we're looking forward to the transition. And then finally, we'll be continuing our work with our student portfolios next year and codifying our academic intervention. So those are like the three big focus goals for our academy next year. And that is it. So that's it for my presentation. If you have any questions, I'd love to take any questions. Made it in 10 minutes and 10 seconds.
Setting the bar. Good job. Good job, Dr. Lecter. Thanks for being on TV tonight.
Hey, Dr. Lecter, I don't think anybody could see you earlier because the presentation was done, but now you're on camera if you'd like to.
So yeah, make sure you're.
Hey, Lainey. Hey, Luke. It's time to go to bed.
Before I get home.
So.
I had a quick question.
Yeah.
Last year, did you talk to us a little bit about, was it like restorative
practices?
Yes.
Yeah.
Can you tell us how that's been going? Because that was kind of a new thing that you were working with the school community to implement.
So if, for those of you that are not well versed in restorative practices, basically schools have used really punitive kind of harsh punishments, almost like correctional type of punishments, things like suspension, detention, expulsion. Those words are kind of correctional in nature. And so our desire is to teach students about behavior and have them fix the behavior, not just feel bad about it, right? Or be punished. So that's what restorative practices are all about. Every Friday, we actually meet in the community room, in the reading room over here, and students that are assigned community room do a restorative assignment ahead of time, and that's tied to agreed upon norms. So we have a behavior matrix that the students created, and then if they break one of those community norms, we have a restorative assignment that's connected to it, and they complete that assignment, and they come and they reflect on it in community room. We do it in the library, in the reading room. It's kind of a nice space to say, hey, we're here to reflect on behavior and grow and learn. My philosophy is own it, make it right, move on, and we weave that into what we're doing. And so that's kind of where we're at. And then there's another component is our language that we use. So we've been doing a lot of professional development with staff on moving away from harsh, punitive, reactive language and more towards positive, proactive, envisioning language. And our staff is doing an excellent job implementing that work. It's one of my favorite things to talk about. So. Anything else? All right. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Although Tom D thinks there needs to be more consequences.
Thank you so much. Great, Executive Director comments?
Yeah, just a couple quick things. As Key was mentioning earlier, we just had 2 musicals that opened and closed. And if you didn't happen to see them, they were phenomenal. And so the high school one, actually, they're looking at competing for the Rita Moreno Award. So we'll keep you posted what happens there. Also, this past weekend on Friday night, we had our first annual multicultural festival, which was amazing. Karen Quant and Caroline Hines at Star Academy were sort of the leads on it, but it took a whole community, took a whole village to put together. There were 30 plus performances from all sorts of different parent and community groups, including a really darling group of K2 students that learned Ballet Folkloreo to perform at the event, and they were precious. And then we had 20 some odd booths. And so there was actually like a little passport where people could kind of go around and get stamps from each of the different countries. So people are already asking what date is going to be the Multicultural Fair next year. So it will be a reoccurring event, but it was phenomenal. We also, this past weekend, had our first charter school collaborative job fair. So I'm actually part of a group called 360 Accelerator, which is basically a network of charter executive directors that meet. And out of that group, we said, hey, wouldn't it be cool if like all of our HR staff worked together and we did a job fair? And so Kiwana and Felicia on our team and Anita's office really took the lead and worked with Rockland Academy out of Rockland and River Charter Schools, which is out of West Sacramento. But we ended up having, I think, 10 or 15 different schools there. We had somewhere in the neighborhood of like 40 to 50-ish people that actually came through and were looking for jobs and stuff. So it was a phenomenal first start at it. And our plan is actually to do it again. And since then, the California Charter Schools Association has also sort of shared that they'd be happy to help us promote the event in the future and that sort of stuff as well. So, it was awesome. Yeah.
Joe, I have a question about that. If someone missed it, because I know someone, I just talked to me about looking for a job and I mentioned, this is coming out, we talked Sunday, it was Saturday, so. But is there any way, or maybe for future, is to how to, I don't know, some kind of Facebook, something, where people can, even after the fair occurred, that they might be able to follow, I mean, are there jobs like listed together?
So we have all of our jobs on EdJoin.
Okay.
And so, if you want to put me in contact with that person, I can share with them the link. But we really use the job fair day as an opportunity to tell candidates about our school and then direct them to our postings that were on EdJoin. And what at least I learned, and I'm sure Laura could kind of chime in as well, like in talking to the 40 some odd candidates, everyone was kind of in a different place. Some people had a teaching credential and were just looking for a totally new job because they were moving to the area. Others were there because they want to become teachers and they were curious if there were any programs that they could be a part of. So we kind of spent time talking to each of the different candidates and sharing what different opportunities we had at the charter school. But I can put us in contact with your person and we can share the link.
Yeah, we also have, it's kind of confusing sometimes when you go on to EdJoin to find a school that you're looking for something. So we developed, I think Laura was the one that developed with Quanta, the QR code that we have. So we could put it in like on our HR webpage. So you can just take a little picture if you want, and it'll always give you the listings and what advertising. It's easier to.
And then last thing, we are going on spring break this week. So we have school tomorrow, Wednesday. I know this has been a really long time since winter break. So I think everyone, students, staff included, are excited to go on spring break. So spring break starts Thursday, it'll be Thursday, Friday, and then all of next week. And then that following Monday, the 17th, students will be back on campus. Yeah. So.
Nice, well deserved.
Yes.
All right, that's all.
That's it for you. Board of Director comments.
Oh, I just wanted to echo what Joe said about the multicultural event. It was pretty phenomenal. And our own student representative, Tanvi, did a performance as well, so great job. It's a big undertaking and it went really well, and I'm sure next year will be even better.
Yeah.
Each year it'll grow.
I got a question. Do we have, this is our 30th year anniversary, do we have swag?
We do have some stickers. And some t-shirts.
Alright, I have some people asking about it,
Oh,
so
okay.
it's
Send them my way. Let's see
Okay.
what I got left.
Alright.
Well, and if people want like specific swag and things, like we do have our school store,
Oh,
yeah,
okay.
where you
I think
can
that's
go
what
and
they,
you can
would
order
to
like
purchase
shirts
something.
and stickers and things like that.
Excellent.
You need a little extra charter gear.
I did see a student in a all black Natomas Charter hoodie. I was like, oh, looks nice. I want one of
That was
those.
one of the Acting 2 honor students. Their Letterman.
Oh, those are Letterman jackets,
Yeah.
but they just got the Something Rotten crew just
Oh,
got
yeah.
new sweatshirts with the Something Rotten on the back, and then it has their name and what role they were.
Oh,
on the yes,
Yeah.
my child's been sporting it every day.
All right, any future board agenda items?
I do have something. I know I talked to Joe. It's so fun dropping your kids off to school every morning.
Maybe a conversation to have about maybe getting lines in the parking lot so people understand, even after this many years, I feel like people really don't know that there's 3 lanes going and it's
Lines.
just, you really have to like prepare yourself every morning and every afternoon to do drop-offs and pickups. Just something to possibly talk about.
Happy to.
This campus or Starbucks?
This
Oh, this
campus,
campus.
yeah. Starbucks is pretty smooth. They're, you know, they're really, they're pretty good over there but this one, yeah.
So maybe add it to our next facilities update, because then we can talk about lines. We can talk a little bit with.
Can I
lines
add
as well.
something?
Yeah.
I also, so I stay after school until like 3:25,
Mhm.
3:30. And I noticed that there's like a lot of PFA parents and like the line goes back until like the signal, like past the Tobish Charter sign and like past the Benvenuti. Like it's all jammed. So maybe we wanna do something about that. Cause it takes my mom like 10 minutes to get through the line itself. So I just wanted to add that.
So I can let your mom on one secret. We have a secret at Natoma Star School. It's not really a secret, but people don't do it. The back parking lot is the place.
She
to
does
pick
do
your
that.
kid
She
up.
comes.
That doesn't work.
It's not working?
I'll
Okay.
try that. And a lot of times it's getting out, like, once you drop them off, then it's like getting out because there's all the roads. And then people are coming from the other side as well, so it's a jam, way out now.
Especially like parents who like the kids don't show up and they like end up like pulling to the side. And some people come with like really big vans and like
Yeah.
cars can't go through.
I think the other challenge we have too, and if you have any insight in this, we would all love it, is everyone wants to go, I'm gonna call it number 1 lane, the lane that's
Yes.
closest to this one. And I literally will go out there and say, we have 2 and 3 open. And then the parents say, no, I'm gonna stay here in number 1 because my child doesn't wanna walk across the.
I know, I mean, that's been going on for years, like,
Yeah.
what Sean's
So I've
been
actually
on
been
for.
testing that.
Yeah.
Because, so, I was thinking, man, let me get in this far left lane. But for whatever reason, when I do, although that far right lane that's closest may be longer and this other lane is shorter, I always get out to the exit faster than the cars that came in. I've been tracking it intentionally. So I don't know what's going on there, maybe the parents are doing something in that other row and they're intentionally not going to that side, I'm not sure. But in addition to the lanes, if we can't do that quick enough, I mean, even stationing maybe one of the persons that are in the crossing areas at the very end, because what happens is people will, like you just mentioned, they'll be jammed always at the stoplight. And sometimes when you're coming off the street here to turn left, you can't even go.
Yeah.
And now that's backed up. So some cars will just intentionally go around the line and then just cut in because there's those 2 lanes that are open. So maybe just having somebody right there at that entry area, telling them, no, go. Because I know some parents get out their cars or they'll start saying something like, what's going on? At that point, yeah.
We tell them and we direct them.
They don't always
They
listen.
don't.
Oh, I know, I've seen that too.
Oh, yeah.
Or maybe even a sign at the end going lane 1, lane 2, lane 3. That's how you exit the parking lot.
Yeah, no, and I think that's something we gotta look at with the lanes is like getting them to go all the way through. I think, something that's kind of an interesting factoid is that in the morning, we have 3 to 4 adults managing the parking lot and 1 managing the entire block. So the 1,100 students are being supervised by
I'm the
one.
one managing it.
But yeah, we're usually, because we're literally sending every able body that we can out to the parking lot just to try to get people through in a timely manner and make sure that no one
Do you
has
think
an
you can get
accident.
volunteers maybe? to
Well,
come
that
to
might
parents?
be, one of the
Like that
things.
crossing guard thing?
Next year, our plan is to bring back our parent hours in a more systemic way. And so kind of talking through that being a volunteer opportunity, because, it is concerning to me that we have so many staff managing the parking lot, but not necessarily the interior of campus.
Yeah.
And really, if we're gonna have staff managing an area, I really want them managing the interior of campus to make sure students are safe. In theory, everyone going through the parking lot has a driver's license.
You would think so.
Yeah.
But
I think
we need a
remember-
little support in both areas.
I remember in the front when, this was several years ago when I would come here and I think it was the honor system, right? You got here first, second,
Yeah, yeah.
third, but people sometimes just cut in
Yeah.
too.
Yeah.
And you're like, wait a minute, it was my turn.
Right.
You know, and so it just kind of backs things up, I think.
Well, I can guarantee that we could get volunteer parking lot to be some really great Chum Starter School swag. You know, maybe we just gotta find the right sweatshirt. I will buy you a sweatshirt for managing the
All
park.
Get your hat, gloves.
But no,
A sticker.
Steve and I will look at when the next facilities update is, but maybe we can talk a little bit more about the Black Rock parking lot.
Yeah.
When we have the next facilities update, and we can talk to Francisco, our facilities manager, a little bit about lines. It's already been actually a conversation that we've been having, and getting the lines painted this summer when we're doing all the other facilities
that would
projects
be
on
good
campus.
too.
Yeah.
Retraining.
Anything else?
I'm sure people would appreciate that in the mornings.
She'd probably use a double.
All right.
All right, well, we'll adjourn the meeting at 7:36.